Alright everyone, today's big story was going to be yes indeed, Elizabeth Warren is in. She has officially announced she had an exploratory committee before. She's testing the waters, making some speeches, going to some rallies, seeing is there enough, sort of gumption behind a potential Warren 2020 campaign. She's now decided yes, she thinks she's got a shot at it, she's now in. That was going to be the big news, and of course she comes out and gives her speech, saying, yes, I'm running. It's basically a fairly standard liberal speech. It's like, we stand for equality, and we need to tax the rich more, and do more about climate change, and all those other real hot issues with everyone, every fucking voter. I think that's being sarcastic. But then Trump did what, I think a lot of people expected, which was they were waiting on his Twitter, refreshing that more than they were watching Elizabeth Warren. Because they're like, hey, how's he going to respond? It's going to be pretty funny. He got more attention in 10 seconds making a fucking tweet than she got making her announcement after teasing it several hours early and then giving her speech. He sucked all of the air out of the room completely. Her campaign is already hampered from day one, which is the funniest thing ever. What he did was this. It was sort of a linguistic kill shot. He comes out and says, oh yeah, Warren this, Warren that. Is she going to run as the first Native American to try to be president? Which is, honestly, it makes sense to bring that up because she spent 30 years lying about that. And then that is a major issue. I think she could really be hampered in some of the western states. Think about Nevada or even New Mexico, potentially. Very high proportions of Native American populations. Are they going to be receptive towards this old woman who has lied about her ethnicity to get ahead, or at least is perceived of as having done so for 30 years? They may choose to vote to punish Elizabeth Warren if she becomes the nominee. She could lose both states. Well, there's the election right there. Virginia's already on the skids. It's looking like there could be a landslide for Trump in 2020 if certain candidates end up getting nominated based on what they've said and done. They've got a lot of different baggage, and they've got to be very, very... The DNC needs to be wary because I'm not seeing any standouts other than Julian Castro, who himself is largely untested, on a debate stage or something, and doesn't really have that much experience. He's sort of their ace up the sleeve. I think he's sort of like their Obama, but whether they'll actually swing him is another story entirely. He has barely any endorsements or attention. They basically ignored him even more than they have Gabbard. So then he says, I'll see you on the trail, Liz, and he capitalizes the word trail. Now, keep it. This is the linguistic kill shot right here. This is what sucked the oxygen out of the room. Elizabeth Warren and Warren 2020 had been trending. They were knocked out completely in favor of Trail of Tears, Trail, and Donald Trump, which is exactly what he meant to do. This is a dog whistle that's meant to screw with people's minds, but this is so brilliant, because think of it this way. Think of what the term trail normally means in a political context. It means the campaign trail, the term's used constantly. It means the candidates going out on the trail to campaign. The trail, like moving from place to place, going to rallies, making speeches and stuff like that. That's what it means. And any person that doesn't if you look at this tweet, if your assumption, if you're like a hardcore Democrat or far left or something, you assume that he is invoking the Trail of Tears, and he's doing so specifically as a racial mockery of Elizabeth Warren. If you're a Trump superfan, you say, even if that's the case, I don't care. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you probably don't care either. You just think that it's funny. He's mocking a long-term career politician who lied about her ethnicity. He never says Trail of Tears, but everyone's taking it to mean that, thus giving him all the attention. He sucked the wind right out of her sails on the first day of her actual presidential campaign. And he didn't even have to use a racial epithet other than Pocahontas. And at this point, do you think that a single person in that 41-42% of stubborn support that he's got cares if he calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas? It's not a racial slur anyway. He is mocking someone who is not Native American because they are constantly claiming to be and have gotten ahead or are perceived of as having gotten ahead in life because of that lie. It is a lie. Really liked the crab omelet recipe with tomato mayonnaise. I'm sure, the Cherokee tribe really loved their tomato mayonnaise, Elizabeth. Yeah, this is Pow Wow Chow. Elizabeth Warren, Cherokee. That's what she's listed on in that book, which is, I think, from 1980 or 81. Mid-80s, she's listing on her bar certificate Native American as her ethnicity. Rambling about her high cheekbones. She takes a fucking DNA test on the subject. Gets blown out of the water but still pretends that it's proof of her claim. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better potential challenger. And by the way, and I'll be discussing this more in another video today as well. That'll be more lengthy on the subject of politics in general. Trump's odds are rising steadily. Look at his polling over the next couple of weeks and it'll reflect it. And I'll tell you why. Because now you have a face for him to be compared to. And that face wants to raise your taxes, lies about her ethnicity, and has signed on to a deal that talks about banning airplanes and building trains across the Atlantic Ocean. Because the reason why his approval has been more middling and mediocre is because there was a vacuous, amorphous Democratic Party, had no specific leader. As of this moment, Elizabeth Warren is now the de facto leader of the Democratic Party. She is now their face. Why? Because she's the only A-grade candidate there. Hillary Clinton's not running. Bernie Sanders isn't really a Democrat, appears to be likely to sit it out. If he gets in, he becomes sort of their face, which is even worse, arguably, for an economic reason. And then Biden might get in. But other than that, she is now the de facto face of the Democratic Party for 2020. The proposals that she has made are basically just a bland, regular old liberal platform, the same as any other Democrat has offered since the Carter era. She's going to be like a Walter Mondale, and Trump's going to be like a Ronald Reagan if she ends up becoming the nominee. No, if she becomes the nominee, I predict she loses. Yeah, at this time, I would be willing to bet that Trump would be reelected. Again, I'll be going more into that later, because specifically for his strategy. One tweet didn't cost him anything to organize, didn't cost him anything to promote. Everyone else did it for him. He's a master of doing this. He makes one tweet and millions of people get a chuckle at Elizabeth Warren. There were probably, there are more people that pay attention to Trump's Twitter than pay attention to the speeches that he's likely to tweet about. People watch the Biden speech like, wow, I can't wait to hear what Trump says about this. It's going to be great. He's the comedian-in-chief for those reasons. I mean, you've got to understand, this is his forte, entertaining people. It's a little bit Shakespearean. There's definitely a lot of showmanship in it. He's highly intelligent. He knows how to use linguistics in propaganda. A lot of these people, they're like, for some reason, they don't appear to understand the basic concept of operating in the internet era. It could be, the average age of politicians. That could definitely play a role. I just find it very funny. And no, I'm not offended by my Trail of Tears. It's like, look, let's assume that's literally what he said. Let's say he had used that exact term. It wouldn't matter. Nobody alive today was on the Trail of Tears. Get over it at some point. You can't say, well, 200 years ago one of my ancestors suffered, therefore things. Well, my ancestors suffered a lot too. Who fucking gives a shit? They're all dead. That's about all. Peace out.